There
There
we
we
go.
go. Hello,
Hello,
everyone, and
everybody.
welcome. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You
well,
can-
okay. Hello, everybody. It usually starts with Brian, but it starts with me. So it's the Brian and Dan hour, and we've got a great guest tonight, an artist of many talents who has had his hand in many well-known features, from comic books to television shows. So I'm really excited to talk to him about that. I've met him a number of times at various Comic Cons we've crossed paths at, and well, I actually got started in really pushing myself as an artist because of a book he produced a number of years ago that was instructional about art, and I loved it, and I used it constantly, and there's still a lot of things in there that I learned that I apply all the time when I'm doing my own artwork today. So I was really excited to meet him first time, and I'm excited to have him on today. It's Mr. Tom Nguyen. So
Hey.
how have you been, Brian?
Besides scrambling around, trying to get everything done, fine so far. I actually made it. I wasn't planning on being here. I told people I'm not going to be on. I can't be on. But I'm here.
Here, miracles happen. So
Yes. In uniform, no less. So yeah, I was prepared to go to work and have to close, but I don't have to tonight. It's next week, however. So I will not be on next week, sadly.
next week I'll be all alone and having to try and fend
I
for
know.
myself on here.
I know. My closer, unfortunately, it's his birthday, St. Patrick's Day, which happens to fall on a Thursday. So I'm like, all right, you can have your birthday off. That's fine.
Well, we all have those days.
He's turning 20, so he wants the day off. And I remember turning 20, so I'm like, all right, fine.
At some point.
So
So we have Valerie and Barbara and Heather joining in. Hello, all.
welcome, everyone. Welcome. Here they are.
I love people who actually comment, not just sit and watch. I love people who actually comment on this. Which, if you are watching this, then don't forget to give it a like and share it. Get it out there. We have we're on Facebook and Twitter and I forgot what's the purple one.
Twitch. We're on
Twitch.
Twitch. Yeah.
I never use Twitch. I have so many different these platforms I end up using for things, and that's not one of my end up on very much. So hello everybody on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook, and don't forget again to like, share, comment, all this. So hello,
Subscribe.
Kayla. Subscribe, yes, subscribe.
Yeah.
Ring
Subscribe.
the bell.
That's right.
Definitely.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. So it's been a week. So what's been going on with you?
Oh, not too terribly much. I have been running Crazy Game Night, which I always do on this every Tuesday for me, which is fun with all my friends, and writing, lots and lots of writing. If you play Heroes Rising, we got lots of story dropping right now. I've spent over 6 months developing this current storyline that's running, and I hope you're all reading, because if you're following the story, you're knowing what's going to come in the game very soon. So and you have to kind of figure out some clues. There's some heavy clues dropped into this story that are a mystery. You need to figure it out. So just be studious and read that and figure it out. So I'm excited about that, because the story was a lot of fun to write. And so it's dropping right now. I've been waiting forever for this to finally come out, and it's rolling out. I got artwork with it. I've got events with it. All this stuff's happening now. So get over there, players and new people. Check it out. It's Heroes Rising.
Absolutely.
I have to pitch it. So
well, yeah, absolutely. You have your hand in it, so mention it. So we have some players that watch the show, that watch us, and so yeah, I don't mind talking about it. I've seen the post. I knew that something was happening with the game, so that's what I saw on Facebook. So yeah,
lots of stuff. And I'm getting all these proof pages coming in very soon here. The comic book based on my book, Bark, a Superhero, is going to be out this month. So very soon that's coming, and I'm finally getting the full colored pages ready for me to approve, and they're all looking pretty good. So I'm excited to see this actually come about. I've always wanted to have a comic book based on one of my books, and here it comes.
Right, absolutely. I've noticed that the signs have returned. We now know who you are behind you. best-selling author, Daniel Payton, and I knew that he was going to call me during the show. This is going to happen.
Oh, welcome to the age of cell
Griffin,
phones.
you're going to die.
Hi, Griffin.
How do you do what? Multiple checks?
It is interesting being a manager of a store when you have to deal with people who need you to answer everything, even if you're not there. Been there myself.
You have to tell the drawer how many checks you have all together. So if it's 2, it's 2. And then you add the total together.
Hi, Griffin.
Correct.
Hi, John Clark, Amber. Glad to have you all on here.
Right? All right. Bye. Goodbye. Oh, Griffin, I'll get you for that.
Well, we'll just make him famous.
He's fired. He's fired. But that's what happens. So, everyone knows I work in retail. I work at Staples. Operations supervisor, that's me. But unfortunately, I'm kind of running the show. I don't have a manager right now. So, so that happens. He knows that if it's an emergency, he can call. I will answer, even if I'm in the middle of a show. I apologize. But, my other aunt is here. My aunt Steph is here. John Clark is here.
Yep. Kayla, love the background? Well, of course you love the background. It's a kind of a special background for tonight because the person who created that background is our guest. So
that's right. He took the picture.
Yep.
I was late. I'm glad that you two were talking before the show because I was with Damien here. We're trying to get the green screen up and everything. And I said, wouldn't it be cool to have one of these pictures of his? And I was like, oh my God, name, telephone number, email address. I was like, I just want that picture. But I got it. I got it though.
Yep.
So I love this picture.
That's very nice. I do like that. I love a nice cityscape.
So that's why I'm kind of blurry just a little bit, folks, because of the green screen. I was supposed to put on something over this so I didn't kind of be blotchy, but
hey,
I'm coming to you digitally.
A lot of the Zoom meetings I end up on, I think no matter what group I'm with, how professional they are, at least one person, as we're having the meeting, here comes a cattail. So blotchy's okay. Being able to see the person's another thing.
Yeah.
So
it's happened a lot to us. So
well, as Tom and I were talking about before this even began, we are in the age of Zoom meetings now, and it's kind of a sweet and sour thing. It's nice because you can have your meeting wherever you need to, and people from all over the planet can be there if they need to be there. But at the same time, people are like, oh, we'll just schedule meetings all the time. So you're constantly in a meeting somewhere. And not everybody's on the same schedule as you are. No. So anyways, as we've been talking on, I guess I will bring on Mr. Tom Nguyen, which I'm hoping I am saying that correct. Artist and author and many other hats he wears, but here he is. Hello, Tom.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Hi. Welcome.
Good. So glad to
find that Brian has his uniform on, like he's on call.
Yep. And he is, actually. He was on call a minute ago.
I was.
That's right. Literally, yeah.
Yes.
So this is Mr. Now I'm saying that correct, right? Tom Nguyen?
Yes.
Good job. Yes. Okay.
Not many people do.
So, first, like I always like to say, introduce yourself and tell people about who you are.
Well, my name is Tom, and I'm an artist. I've worked for a bunch of different companies and titles, characters you might have heard of, mostly from DC Comics, Marvel Comics. I think in the comic book realm, I'm most well known for working on Green Lantern and Batman, especially the Under the Red Hood storyline, Justice League, Catwoman, JLA, Superman, the Man of Steel. They've thrown me around like everywhere. So, and on the Marvel side, it's I did like an issue of like X-Men Unlimited and Captain Marvel from like 2015, but most of my Marvel stuff is trading card form, but which is fine because it had me draw like some of my favorite characters that otherwise I probably would never get to draw, as far as the Marvel comics. So I've been able to draw like a lot of the X-Men characters and Avengers characters and Spider-Man. So that's always great fun. But in the recent years, I've been doing more and more television work now. Most notably, the TV show Big Brother for CBS. Oh, there's Brian again.
Oh my
He's on
God.
call.
No, it's not for me. Not for me this time. Wow. It usually never rings. That's the house phone.
It's just very different.
Yeah, it's the house phone.
Call from none.
None. Who? See,
From
no one.
none. There you go. Well, I mean, Big Brother is kind of where I got my big start, and then after that, and that was in late 2014, I want to say. But then since then, I've kind of branched out and have done work for other TV shows. I think most recently, other than Big Brother, the other big thing I had was I did a bunch of background art for TBS's Wipeout. A lot of the shows I do are reality competition type shows. So,
Okay.
yeah, so if it's not on screen, then I get hired to do behind the scenes pitch illustrations, which are basically they have concepts and games and challenges that they want to have on the show, but they need someone to kind of visualize it and draw it out for them so then they can pitch it to the network and the executives. And that's my job. That's where I get hired on a lot of TV shows to do that before their season starts if they get picked up. And some of them get picked up, some of them don't, but it's a job all the same. And then, when I'm not doing that, I'm moonlighting as a photographer, as Brian's awesome background is an example of that. But in my spare time, I'll also do Comic Cons. I try to do a lot of Comic Cons that invite me throughout the year. It's for me as an artist who works full time at home, or really wherever I can now with computers and everything. I kind of treat Comic Cons as like really my only way to get out and do some. It's like a cheap vacation, and I say cheap because I'm fortunate enough to get invited still to shows, and usually they cover the cost of traveling. So always thankful for that and take advantage of that when I can. And that's how I met Dan. Was on the Comic Con circuit.
Yeah.
Oh, Dan always meets the good people.
Yeah. Brian hasn't been to a Comic Con yet.
Brian doesn't go?
No, I'm pushing. I've been pushing hard.
Why not?
Yeah, no. I'm getting there. I will. He just needs to come a little bit closer to me. That's all.
Yeah.
I keep telling you, New
Where
York
are you
City.
based, Brian?
So I am in Western Massachusetts.
Okay.
So I'm 45 minutes to Albany. I'm 3 hours to Boston and 3 hours to New York City. About
How
3.5
far
to
from
New York
Worcester?
City.
How far from Worcester are you?
Worcester is let's see, we got Pittsfield. I work in Pittsfield. So Pittsfield, Springfield, from Springfield, Holyoke, probably an hour? Not even a little more than an hour, I think, to Worcester.
Because I did I did a show in Worcester.
Really?
I think like 5 years ago or so, and it called Massive Comic Con, and I was a guest there.
What? Where was I? I don't understand.
There you go.
Probably working.
Yeah.
Probably working.
Yeah. As I mentioned before, you were on. I first came to know you through an art instructional book.
Oh yeah, Incredible Comics with Tom Nguyen.
Yeah.
The first one or the second one?
I think it was the first one.
Okay, yeah, because the second one came out, I think, like 3 or 4 years afterwards, and it was and that focused more on just like drawing women. But the first one was kind of more of a general, introduction to drawing comic books.
And I to this day, I will say I am not good at drawing comic book style. My style is definitely more realistic, but that a lot of the instructions in there about composition, I stuck with me. Now these are things I know that a lot of people, art students, learn. I didn't go to art school, so that when I was reading the book, things just stuck with me, and I loved the book, and I loved it so much.
Thank you.
I don't know what happened to it.
Well, yeah, I think they have a Kindle version of it now, because both books, you should find it because it might be it might have some value now because they're both out of print, so they're hard to get. And if you try to find a mint copy, at least the ones that I've been able to find, you might be paying a little bit extra for it. I myself, I might have one copy left, and then I saved two copies because they're in Chinese. So they printed that book in several countries, and China was one of them. And they sent me comp copies of those. And I thought it was such a nice, cool, rare treat that I just kept those. And the other ones I either like gave away or I sold. But yeah, I haven't looked at the Kindle version to compare to see how good it. I mean, nothing is really as good as holding the physical book in your hands, right?
Yeah, when I first met you in Knoxville at a Comic-Con, I wanted to bring the book and have you sign it, and I destroyed all my bookshelves trying to find my copy, and I to this day have no idea where it evaporated to, but it disappeared.
It'll pop up when you least expect it to.
Yeah,
it always does.
So,
but you should bring it, because I always tell people, anyone who bought that book, if you bring it to my table, I'll do a sketch in it for free. I do that for everyone that buys that book.
Yeah, I gotta find it. I've got to find it. But that's how I first came to know the name Tom Nguyen, and your picture's on the back, and so I was like, when I first saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, I know I know of that person. So, and that was
me with the bikini girls.
Yep, there were the girls on there, definitely. But yes, that was actually one of my first book signing conventions that I had done. So I abandoned my booth to come see it. So going back to the beginning, reading your information, you started, it said 19?
Yeah, so 19 is when I got hired at DC, but I was about to turn 20. So I got hired at 19. I got the call literally like a month before I turned 20. And then I turned 20, and then it wasn't until after that I got my first pages in my hand to do. And, it was on a book called Major Bummer, which is kind of like a superhero slapstick comedy type book for DC. It was, it wasn't a typical mainstream superhero title. It was just kind of something offbeat but different. It was a gig, and it was written by John Arcudi, who is a really great humor writer. He got his fame on The Mask for Dark Horse. And then Doug Mankey was a penciler, and then I broke in as an inker. And I had already known Doug for a few years. So we were already friends before then. So, I mean, that just goes to show you how much, connections kind of help. Not that I was totally talentless, but, it certainly helped to have that push, because I was a guy right out of high school, and I still had to try out for the gig. I had to ink one of his cover pieces, and I was up against, if I recall, 6 or 7 different professional inkers who had gotten paid to try out, by the way. So I was like the lone guy who wasn't a pro, who was just kind of doing it. And I believe they narrowed it down to 2, and I was one of them. And then they just kind of let Doug, say, hey, who do you like? And, Doug took a chance on me because we were friends. We lived close by. And I was young. Therefore, I was kind of moldable in case he had some, like, he needed me to tweak something, he could do that. And I didn't care. I just wanted to break in. My goal was never to become an inker. It was just to use that as a stepping stone to get my foot in the door and then do some penciling later. But yeah, it was a great time for, a college dropout and who had a very strict upbringing, like a traditional, like Asian upbringing, where you're expected to not disappoint your parents, and you're supposed to go to school, a proper university, and get a respectable job. I mean, that's, with my generation, my parents' generation, and maybe even the generation below. I mean, that's always, it's a strange culture where, your children are almost used as a tool for competition. And one of your bragging rights is how successful and how smart your kid is. When everyone's turning left, trying to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, I'm the lone guy turning right, rebelling and wanting to, draw cartoons, essentially. It didn't, on the surface, it didn't make my parents too proud at first. But, I mean, got to break the mold somehow. I wasn't going to go through life. I wasn't going to go through life being pressured into doing something I just didn't care to do, which is academic stuff. Number two, I always thought, I don't want to live my entire life and at the end of my life always think about what if I did actually pursue what I love to do, which was drawing and comic books. I didn't want to have that. There's too many people that go through that already, that by circumstance or whatever, they're not able to pursue their passion, or they're discouraged from doing it, whether it's from family or just situations or friends that just don't have that support. I didn't really have that support either, but I had the drive and the confidence to just ignore all of that negative, opinion.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many people I've met and know that have finally written their first book because they retired and now they have time to write, and they always wanted to do this. And I'm like, you could have done it, before. You didn't. You put the barriers were kind of imaginary. So not always, but yeah, that definitely can be there, and I understand that entirely. I had the other end of it. I had so many people encouraging me to become an author from an early age, work on that. Art literally came just because I wanted to do it. I found it fun, and I don't consider myself a top tier artist at all, but I can sell some stuff, so I'm good.
Sure.
But writing's my passion, and my family encouraged that. So I have the other end of that. I consider myself still on the struggling side of it, because you don't make a lot of money at this until you really, really break out there. But I'm working on it. So
and going back, I mean, I totally understand. I understand where my parents are coming from. I understand, strict tiger parenting, as they call it, because they just want the best for the kids. But I think it's kind of ingrained in how, our older generation is brought up, in that they don't really consider, or they were never taught, that part of being comfortable and is being happy, and part of being happy is actually doing what you enjoy, and not so much doing, what you don't enjoy. And I have enough friends and peers who did go that route, and they seem comfortable and happy and stuff, but it just wasn't for me. And sometimes I wonder if they're truly pursuing if this was really a passion for them, or was it beaten into them, and if they didn't do it, if they would get their asses beat, like we were all threatened, so that's, and you're right, about the money thing. I mean, there's, everyone thinks I'm a millionaire. I'm like anything but. I'm like the opposite, but I'd rather not make that scientist, engineer, doctor money and be happy than be miserable and have that much money. So in that sense, I no complaints.
This world often measures success only by money, and if the pursuit of happiness is what we're after, not the pursuit of just wealth. And
it's funny too, because I'm like far from the richest guy of like a lot of my friends that I grew up with, but but when I meet people, it's like they treat me like I am, and it's like it's like I make up for that based on what I do, my credentials, and so it's kind of weird. This whole like psychology, perception is reality type thing. It's always such an interesting topic for me. When I'm a people watcher and I'm an observer of how people act socially around each other, and it's weird. It's eye opening.
Well, we have a few questions that have popped up here. I'll go ahead and throw them out there. So Kayla asks, what character did you enjoy the most drawing, and why?
I always say my favorite character is Spider-Man. He's just always my favorite character since I was a kid. He's the guy that got me into comic books when I was a little boy. When I made me pick up the pencil to start drawing, because my favorite cartoon was Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Is he my favorite to draw? Not necessarily, because of all the detail on the webs that I have to do. So they're not mutually, they're not the same thing. But I guess for drawing, I kind of have this reputation of drawing like the pretty cute girls. So I sometimes, or a lot of times, I'll get asked to draw, like Catwoman or Wonder Woman or Supergirl, just make her look pretty or cute or something, like a pinup pose sometimes, and
Mhm.
something cutesy. So I like drawing that, but they're not necessarily my favorite characters. It's always Spider-Man first, Batman second. So
That's a good.
I grew
good
up on I loved X-Men too, actually. In the 90s X-Men is when I really exploded with my nerdness.
Mhm.
That and the image explosion in the 90s.
Mhm.
That's like I grew up during the height of that. So
Oh yeah, I remember X-Men cartoon of the '90s. It
oh
got me
gosh,
into superheroes. Oh yes,
yeah,
and
the one where they killed off Morph in the first episode.
mm-hmm. And they introduced Jubilee and killed off Morph. Yeah. So yes, I remember that one, and that actually was where I came from. Was my favorite superhero was always Storm, and I always say that not. I say it because I grew up in Oklahoma, where the weather tries to kill you on a regular basis. So the
Yeah.
idea of controlling weather was so cool.
Yeah, Oklahoma. Well, isn't Oklahoma City just right in Tornado Alley right there?
Oh, the whole state.
Oh, the whole state. Okay.
I've seen in my lifetime. I saw 9 tornadoes in person. My school was hit by one. Our university was hit by one. My church. So
Dang.
yeah, I've
I've
been
never
through
seen one. I live in the suburbs of Minneapolis, Minnesota right now.
it. Mhm.
And, I mean, we have, being in the Midwest, we have our fair share of tornadoes as well. Not as much as, in Oklahoma, but we do get a lot. And to this day, I still don't want to see one ever. Well,
Mhm.
okay. For the longest time, I never wanted to see one because they just terrified me ever since I was a kid. I actually knew a guy whose his dad died in a tornado growing up. But I think like as I maybe in the last decade, I kind of do want to see one, but as long as it's safe distance away, like far away from me.
Yeah, that's where you find those tornado chasing groups that go out there and follow
Oh
because
yeah,
people who lead that know how to stay away but get a good picture.
yeah. In those giant like custom made tanks that they
Mhm.
make.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I've seen those. I've seen the weather cars down the road. I've seen all that. I've seen hail the size of grapefruit, lightning
Oh
on.
geez.
Yeah, just craziness. But yeah, so the idea of controlling weather just made me like that character so much.
Mm-hmm.
So now on the flip side here, we have the next person ask the question: what character do you hate to draw?
I got this question, I think, or maybe a variation of it the other night when I did a live stream with this other channel where the difference between that and this podcast is that that was to draw live and people would log on, then they would claim the sketches. Um, anything that is just like super detailed costume, like Iron Man. I mean, Iron Man to me is like far worse than Spider-Man because he's techie, so you got to keep everything very symmetrical. But then he's got so many variations of his costume,
Yeah.
and some of them is just like wild, just far out. Galactus, just just anything techie and robotic. A lot of robot parts or hard angles. That kind of show that it's like an artificially made like armor.
Oh yeah.
So the more I have to think about it, as far as like shaping it in my head to make it look correct, the more I dislike drawing it. Some things I can just draw in my sleep, like Batman, so easy. Superman is pretty easy. I mean, Silver Surfer. I mean, it's just reflections, but he's basically like a naked dude on a surfboard. I like the simpler costumes.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, now back to, I talked about where you started. So you started, as you said, on kind of almost a spoof of a comic. How did that grow into doing some of these mainstream, well-known titles?
Well, I mean, I have to give credit to Doug Mankey. I mean, I owe my career to him. I mean, he's the guy that mentored me, since I was 15 years old when I met him, as an aspiring teenage artist. And I mean, honestly, I just my credentials and any type of success that I have is built in the shadow of Doug Mankey. So I just followed wherever he went. Major Bummer lasted 15 issues. and which is a miracle these days for any new book to last that long. I mean, that'd be considered a hit. But back then, you know, it's like, oh, you're not selling well enough. We're going to cut it at issue 15. Then after that, I mean, we basically went straight to Superman, the Man of Steel. And then from there, because we were a team. So really, I just went where they sent us or where they sent Doug. And from Man of Steel, went to Justice League. And then from there, went to Justice League Elite, which was like a 12-issue maxi series. And from there, went to Batman, and we were on that title for a year. And that was, I mean, you know, lots of it was also like just strokes of luck on the books that we happened to be on, because the time that we were on Batman, that was the Under the Red Hood storyline, which is like now huge. Like the characters like in pop culture now. And back then, we didn't, at least I didn't think of it that way. Back then, I just thought of it as another job, another book. And that blew up. And then we went on to do some Green Lantern stuff. And then the whole Blackest Night saga with Jeff Johns, that blew up. You know, we can't predict what's going to take off and what doesn't. Oh, before that was like Final Crisis. And that blew up. And then from there, let's see, that's, I think, Green Lantern was when I started. After Batman was when I started cutting myself off a little bit, taking a step back and tried to do some more penciling, and then also tried to just establish myself more. Not that there was anything wrong. I mean, there's never anything wrong being partners and in the, you know, the shadow of Doug Mankey's success. Believe me. I mean, that's what helped. I believe that's what helped me get to where I am today. But you know, I had that itch that I wanted to almost kind of prove to myself that I can break away and do my own thing without needing to depend on being his partner or in his shadow, so to speak. And that's when I wrote my instructional books on drawing. And then that's when I started to do some more penciling. I think I did like a fill-in of Green Lantern Corps, and then I did a 4-issue miniseries of Ghostbusters for IDW. I did a 4-issue series called Adolescent Radioactive Black Belt Hamsters for Dynamite. That's another goofy book, but it was fun. And then I went back to DC and I started doing some Catwoman and Barbed Wire for Dark Horse over a penciler named Patrick Olive, who's another fantastic penciler. And just really, I don't know, I've been very lucky to work with a bunch of, you know, like great artists and creative teams throughout my life. And then in the summer of 2014, I got this email out of nowhere from Big Brother. And I don't know if you guys watch the show or know anything about the show, but it's basically a reality show. It's been going on. I mean, we just did season 23. And since the early 2000s, it's basically a bunch of people live in a house, and kind of like MTV's The Real World. But every week they kick someone out, they evict them. And it's basically throughout the season, they do a bunch of challenges and games, some backstabbing. You know, it's like the dynamics of living with other people. And every week you kick someone out, last one standing wins a bunch of money. But that season in 2014, they hit me up because they're going to try something new for the show, like a comic book themed episode. And that's where Big Brother Comics, or we call it BB Comics, comes in, where all of the people living in the house, they get drawn as a comic book cover. And back then, I was one of the artists they contacted. I did 2 of the house guests, but they had like several, I think they had like 5 artists at least. And then over the years, they kept calling me every season. And now I'm like one of the main guys that they call. And then on top of that, they've had me do other stuff that's been shown on TV. You know, like sometimes they'll have me do artwork that's on the walls of the house. You know, and this is all aired, you know, like nationally. And then I'll do what I explained earlier. I'll do pitch illustrations, which is, you know, before every season, they might call me up, said, okay, well, this season we're going to try this. Can you draw this? So I've been with them ever since, and it's been great for me. It's weird because like my career is now split into 2 phases. One's the comic book phase, which I still have a leg in, but it's like it's because of the comic book phase that now the second part of my career is like a career reboot. That's the television phase. So, and they've both been equally good for me. And you know, it beats doing brain surgery as a doctor. So.
I'm glad somebody else can do that. I couldn't handle that.
Right.
Yeah.
Very much. So, okay. Now, talk a little bit about the pitch stuff. You mentioned before that. So, do they are they trying to bring on new sets, or what do they have you draw? I'm just looking confused there.
Okay, so it depends on the show and the production company that you know puts the show together. Usually it's basically okay. Let's say the new season's coming up, and a lot of the pitches that I do are always games or types of or like contests or something, because a lot of the shows I work on are reality competitions. So think Survivor or you know things where the people on television actually have to compete,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in certain like challenges just to kind of move up into the season or something like that. And that's where these producers will come up with these different types of games, some things that haven't been tried before, and then they'll just call me up and say, "Hey, can you draw these pitch illustrations?" And then they'll describe the gameplay to me. I'll draw it out. I'll send it to them. They'll take that, they'll print it out, they'll take it to a pitch meeting with the network and the executives, and they'll just kind of pitch the game that they hired me to do. Now, other producers may be hiring other artists to do other pitches, but you know, so certain producers will only go to me or they like me. Other producers may pick a different artist. So multiple producers may hire me. So I'm not the only guy that does it, but it's the bulk of my work. And sometimes I'll be asked to do like design stuff for sets. Like I remember I did a couple things for Nickelodeon Double Dare, and I don't know. I never really paid attention on if they used elements of my design. I'll do storyboards sometimes. My buddy Henry Liao from California, he's an artist, and he's you know years ago he kind of like helped me. He's been doing storyboards longer than I have, but he's kind of you know helped me and kind of showed me the ropes of how he does storyboards, and then I've actually helped him do it, and then from there I've gotten some storyboard gigs. My most notable one is doing a Mazda campaign for a few. I think it was like the Mazda 3 or something like that.
Yeah.
So you know, if you see the commercials from a couple of years ago on TV, you know, I did the storyboards for that campaign. That might be on my website too, that I'm in the middle of redesigning. But I was hired to do some storyboards for Hunters on Amazon, the one with Al Pacino from a couple years ago. I think they went in a different direction because I don't think they actually. So all the characters on a TV show, I don't even know if you guys are familiar with the show, but it's a bunch of Nazi hunters, and they had one season on Amazon Prime, and or Amazon Original or something like that. It starred Al Pacino and a few other actors, but I was hired to do some storyboards of what were supposed to be like I think just 20-second spots of introducing each character, but they went in a different direction like altogether. After I did that, I was still paid for it and everything, but they just never did those spots. So I wonder if it's because they just hated my work. I don't know. They paid me.
Yeah, that's what's important. So Robert asks, how do the deadlines from comics and TV compare?
TV is much worse.
I'm sure.
TV is terrible.
Yeah.
TV is terrible. Comics are bad too, but really, it really depends on, you know, the team and the scheduling and comics. I mean, back when I broke in, they expected you. I mean, we had to be at least 3 months, preferably 6 months ahead of what was on the stands, and we were for a little bit, but then it just the industry kind of moved into a point to where, you know, I mean, the book is already late and or you know you send in your last page and then it goes to print like the next week, you know, just running right up to print deadline is I think it's like the norm now. But you know, at least if you blew a deadline and stuff, they could still push it back. I mean, it's not going to be good for anyone. It's not going to be good for the retailers or the customers or the company or anything. But I mean, with television, you have no choice. It's going to air. You have to have it done. And I like my career, you know, and and I've been making good connections, and never blew a TV deadline. The ironic thing is I haven't blown a TV deadline, but I've blown like comic book deadlines, even though the TV deadlines are worse. So that's the ironic thing. But I'm also faster. I'm also older and more mature and stuff, and more professional in that sense. But yeah, the TV is terrible. I'll literally get a call at this has happened a few times where I'll get a call at 10 at night. Can you get something done by 9 a.m. before a meeting? Like one time I actually got 2 pitch illustrations. So two games I had to draw out in full color by the next morning to have it done. In fact, my very first gig doing pitch illustrations was like that. They said, hey, you know, you want to give it a shot? Can you do this by morning? And I remember I literally did not start it until I think I got on the plane that morning. Okay, no, it was due the next late afternoon. I had to board a plane to go to, well, funny enough, Knoxville for Fanboy Expo. And this was like 2015, I believe. And that summer. And I got the assignment the previous late night to do 2 pitch illustrations. And I did it. They had a meeting, and those pitch illustrations got picked up to be in the show. And I really believe that it was that good start, that good impression that led me to continue this job of doing it. Ironically, well, funny enough, what led me to do my first pitch illustrations was the first time Big Brother contacted me, and they needed 2 drawings for the Big Brother comics for their house guests, and they needed that in about, I think, a day and a half, which I was able to do. And so yeah, I started off luckily making a very good impression. So and then it's just been thankfully going ever since.
Yeah, now one of the things that I have worked with in the online game that I do is we've working with artists. I do art and writing, but we hire a lot of artists because I certainly can't keep up with all the stuff that needs to go on in the game. And we do have artists that we've had to work with that we've like, okay, we asked them to do this by next week. It's been 2 months. And it's like they're totally, absolutely not following any kind of schedule of ours. So yeah, I can fully understand that because if on our end, we're like, we have players, we have people waiting for this to come out. It's got to be this time. And they're like, oh, I think I'm close to being done. That's not done.
Yeah. And I'm guilty of that myself too, especially on the sequel to my book, The Switch. I don't know. Keith might be listening. Hey, Keith. He's been done with the script for a couple of years now, and I'm still. It's just a matter of time. It's our own project, so I don't really feel like. There's no way I can word this without making it still seem like I'm the one holding us back, because I really am. But because it's our own project, it's not like I'm doing something for DC and I can just keep putting it off. It's like my own thing. But out of respect for him and for the people who are looking forward to the book, I really do need to kick myself in the ass when I get a spare moment and just focus on knocking out some more pages. But when I'm trying to balance that with the television stuff, which I said it seems to be like my career now, it's tough. But when in these tough, stressful times when I'm juggling multiple projects and people breathing down my neck, I always have to take a step back and just say, you know what, it could be worse. I'd rather be too busy than not busy enough. So it's all about perspective.
Yeah. And I think all artists have that same problem. When you have personal projects you're working on, that the deadline is all basically when you get done. You tend to let that sit to the side while you take care of the stuff somebody else has asked you to do. I know. Yeah. I've got a backlog of books that are currently in the process of working on. Sure. that are just what I've worked on, and no one has them yet. No one knows they're even going to be published yet.
Right.
They're so close to being done, and then I'm like, but he asked me to do this, so that'll wait another day.
Yeah.
So many days.
It just comes down to it's just not enough hours in a day. That's all it is.
Yeah. Okay, so Valerie asks the question of which do you like doing better, TV or comic?
Oh, I like them both. I really can't pick one or the other, even though nowadays I do more TV than comics. It's because of comics that I'm doing TV. Let's just say that, for the sake of discussion, that there's no such thing as, I don't have to worry about money or anything. And I had all the free time for the rest of my life. I can do whatever I want. I'd probably do comics. I think the root of it is always comics. My love is comics, because the art form of comics, and you just telling stories with pictures. I mean, that's where it all began. And essentially, TV is the same thing. At least what I get hired to do, I'm trying to tell these producers ideas and stories through panels, and that's basically, to me, that's basically comics. So I guess if you put a gun to my head, comics.
I'm just wondering, why not illustration?
Like, give me an example.
Disney.
Animation?
Like cartoon animations, excuse me, yeah.
Good question. Very good question, because I get asked that a lot. My main thing with animation is the time consumption. So if I wanted to animate a scene for you, let's just say a scene of someone walking into the kitchen and making dinner. Meanwhile, an explosion, or let's say someone's, a bomb gets thrown into the living room, through the window. To draw that, to animate that, I'd have to draw so many frames. Just, it's so time consuming. And on top of that, the frames almost look like each other, other than just like a little bit of movement, and then when it gets played back normal speed, then it looks like there's movement.
Right.
But so to me, it's the time factor, and the other part is the tediousness of drawing almost the exact same thing over and over and over. Now with software, and of course there are tools that can help. I can probably draw the background once and just draw the figures moving, but still it's a lot of work when I can just draw a comic book panel, couple panels with the word balloons, and I get to put more care and time into it without the thought of trying to take shortcuts just to save time. And that's why it's just the time consumption and the tediousness.
Yeah.
So have you, outside of comic book art, and of course all the pitch work, do you do other painting or drawing mediums that's not comic book style? Do you dabble in anything else, oil painting or acrylic or watercolor?
Painting, I used to do quite a bit of painting, and I wish I could go back to that. It's just a matter of time now. But for a long time, I was a pinup painter guy. Like, I would paint, like these airbrush and watercolor paintings of women. Let's see if I can find. I might have some examples here. 1 second.
Actually, while he's running to do that, I'm going to go grab something. So Brian, you got the show.
I'm all alone.
Woo-hoo. I'm back.
Oh, look at that. Everyone
That
returned.
was fast.
That it was.
You had an opportunity for a commercial break.
What did I do with my, you can probably find it online, but I did like these realistic airbrush paintings of like girls and models and stuff like that. And I used to work with a bunch of pageant competitors and winners and everything. And I gotta have something around here.
I'm sure. I am going to post the website, though. I think everyone needs to take a peek at his website, because that's where I found, this picture behind me. So, yeah.
Yeah, Joseph's
Free,
here.
by the
Says,
way. Free.
he says, get to work, brother. Now
This isn't the most. This is very old. I mean, this is like 20 years old, and this isn't very. It's just a portrait, but this is an actual painting. where I would draw it in pencil, and then I would
It's a painting?
yeah, this is a painting. So this is I'd use ink and then acrylic airbrush, like those little spray guns,
Yep, yep.
get the tones and stuff, and then I'd touch it up and detail it with
Wow. Okay.
when you pull it far back, when you look at it up close, you can see the strokes.
I can see it now, yeah, because to me,
But-
that looks like you took a picture.
Right. But that's what I would do, except,
Wow.
just like full body stuff. But, after doing that for so many years and getting a little bit of recognition for it, I've been published with it in a couple of books. I stopped doing it just because comics got too busy. And that was just more for fun on the side anyway. And then I started picking up photography, like real photography. And then I told myself, well, why am I spending like a week, like 10 hours a day a week to do one painting when I could just like learn how to use lights and the camera properly and knock out like 25 photos in like a day. So that's what I started to do. I taught myself photography, and then I started like taking like real pictures of like models and stuff. So, I mean, this is really reflective, but
Yeah.
you get the point. And then I started, just happening on freelancing, doing some stuff for like a local agency and stuff. So it's it's just another outlet for me to be creative and use my artist's eye to do something fun and make some money on the side. Not as much as it wasn't full time, so obviously it was just like more like fun money, like steak dinner money or something every now and then. But yeah, and so I like I said before, I kind of moonlight as a photographer, even though it's not my first. It's not my main career or job or anything. But luckily the little amount of photography I had done relative to my art career, I mean, it's I don't know. I did something right because that got viral with the bodybuilding photography that I started doing, and it's like stroke of luck or something. I did something right.
I was going to point out that I still have my piece that that I got from you back when I first met you.
Oh yeah, yep. Cool.
There's his actual name.
You didn't throw that away?
It's not. It's poorly framed. Actually, I've had to do more superhero art since I work for this game. And when I first started, I actually had this sitting next to my art station because I was taking notes from this on how to do certain things. So, yeah. Cool. But yes, I got that the very first time we met. I think it was 2015 because that's when my very first book signing was at that Comic-Con. So
okay, yeah. So we met right after I started doing work for Big Brother, and I made that first big impression. So that was like basically the beginning of my TV career is when we met.
You look tired, I guess maybe.
I didn't sleep. Oh, I was stressing so much on the plane. I didn't even tell you the full story. So I got to the airport early to check in that day in Minneapolis. And I brought my little, it was like a Surface Pro 2, like the tablet computer that had the pen that I could draw on. And I got checked in early. I got to my gate and I was just scribbling like crazy. It was like I was on autopilot. And I just kind of let whatever lines came out through my hand. I just had to put something down. And then we got called on to board the plane. And then for the next, I think it was 2.5 hours, I was just nonstop, just drawing. And came off and then finished it in the hotel. As soon as you got to the hotel, I put the finishing touches. I sent it in, waiting in my hotel room while everyone else was kind of relaxing, having dinner, getting ready for the big weekend. And then I get a call from the producer, and she's like, "Hey, can you do a couple just tweaks on here?" And we had a couple notes, and did it. And then she texted me later and said, they got approved. Great. Sigh of relief. Finally got myself some dinner in Knoxville and went to bed and got ready for the weekend. So yeah, it was pretty stressful, but it was worth it.
You must have gone to Calhoun's. That's the best de-stressing place there.
The Calhoun, the
barbecue place, not Knoxville's.
Oh no. Well, I went to Market Square.
Oh yeah, that's
Square?
great.
Is that where Calhoun is? I don't know.
Market Square. No. They're not Market Square. But yeah, I know Market
Okay.
Square. It's nice. I
Yeah,
lived in
I
East
just
Tennessee for 18 years, so I know Knoxville very well.
okay.
So
Okay.
if we're ever together there again, I'll take you to some great places. Okay.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Market Square is kind of like my default go-to because they've got
Mhm.
most everything there, and that's where it's all kind of happening and stuff.
Mm.
Yeah, it's near the World's Fair area too. So,
Yeah.
anyways, the question I actually had this question I'm going to bring up, but Robert asked it. Do you currently do most of your work on a tablet or pen and paper?
Uh, it's about half and half. I mean, most of my professional like work is now on the tablet, and if it's like commissions or stuff, that's all on paper. So, let's see if I can turn this iPad around. So see this big.
Mm-hmm.
So I draw on here. This is my home studio drawing tablet, and then there's just an extra monitor up there.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm at home, I'm drawing on here. When I'm on the road nowadays, it's my iPad, believe it or not.
Mm.
Procreate.
Because nope, not Procreate. Not a big fan of Procreate, believe it or not. I use Clip Studio Paint. You know why?
I've
Because
used.
Clip Studio Paint doesn't have a resolution or a layer limit the way Procreate does.
Yeah.
And if you do some of the work that I do, I need as many layers as possible sometimes. And sometimes I'm drawing like huge resolution that, gets blown up, like literally blown up for TV screen and stuff. So, and you know what? Procreate stance has always been, well, we do that for you guys, for the user experience, because we want to minimize lag and all this stuff. But I've never had a problem with Clip Studio Paint. It's great. And the best thing about Clip Studio Paint, it's the exact same version as it is on the desktop computer at home. It's not an abbreviated app version. It's the full version. So that's why I use the iPad now. It's great for travel. It's light, it's thin, and I can take it anywhere with me. The battery lasts most of the day, and I can even have it, and I have had it at my table at Comic Cons.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I get a break, I'll just start drawing in there. But yeah, when I'm at home, for instance, then it's all like okay. So I mentioned a couple nights ago I did a live sketch claim stream that lasted like almost 5 hours. But these are like sketches that people have claimed live on the show to do. And this is all obviously done by hand. And you can actually look for it's on, you can actually go to YouTube and it's called 4C Comics is the channel. And they do these sketch claim shows with other artists, and these are mostly finished. I still have to put some detail and some marker shading on it, but basically I'm trying to do as many headshots as I can within the show.
Mm.
But yep, these are all by hand. If I had my choice and I had all the time in the world, I would do everything by traditional like pen and paper, just because I think it's great. Original art is great, but it's not practical when doing it in television when they're asking you to make all these changes all the times after meetings. When you're meeting with a bunch of producers and executives, they all have their input, and I mean, it's you'll never get everyone to agree on everything exactly, and then they'll come back with me, say, can you change this? And I have to be able to do that digitally to be practical.
Yeah. I use Procreate mostly for what I do, but I can understand definitely. I've used Clip Studio on my computer and with all my tablet work, but for my iPad, I've always used Procreate. That's what I started
Yeah.
with. But I can
And I
respect
played
that.
with Procreate. I love their brushes.
Mm-hmm.
I wish there was a way to take Procreate and just unlock the layer limits and the resolution limit, or maybe just like do like a hybrid of that and Clip Studio Paint. It would be perfect.
Yeah. But I do know I've used both, and I like Clip Studio. I've used that before Procreate back when I was just on my Wacom tablets. But I like for the tablet for iPad I was used. But I can understand that was something I thought when I first saw some of the stuff you were posting about what it was in the background of Big Brother or on all the shows. Like that's huge, and so my first thought was he must have done that by hand. It's an actual piece, but then no. because I know
Yeah.
kind of additions and edits they like. So
Yeah, and TV is, in comics, the one thing I miss about comic books is that the editors never, almost in my experience with the books I've worked on, they almost never ask me to make any like ridiculous changes. Whereas I can expect that to happen almost all the time in television. But it's a different industry.
probably one of the last but crazy question of the night comes from Tyler. It says, how can I get as good as you in 1 month?
I think I know who this guy is. He's my neighbor. What's up, Ty? I think he asked me this before. Too.
Prayer. I think prayer is a big part of that one.
That's like asking, how can I be a good shooter in 1 month, or how can I be a good hitter in in a sport? It's just practice, man. It's but sometime he and I will have to privately get together, and I'll just have to sit down and just show him. Sometimes they just need it to be shown once, and then they'll practice and get the hang of it. But it's good to hear from him.
Yeah, I've worked on art on my own and using books and stuff for almost 20 years before I started actually selling a few pieces for the stuff that I do. And my early stuff was awful, but it was just persistent practice. It's all art. I do embroidery, I do writing. All of it is persistent practice.
The funny thing is, these days, there's never been a better time for anyone to jump in and learn, because you have resources online like YouTube now, people showing everything under the sun. Even before YouTube, you still had to pay so much money to like get like a digital instruction or a download or a video class or something like that. I mean, heck, back in 2004, Doug and we put out DVDs on how to ink and how to pencil. It's like you couldn't get that resource back then unless you paid for it, and we had to take out a full page ad in Wizard and everything. And but nowadays it's all free. I mean, sure, there are programs where they might get a little more specific or detailed if you're looking for a style where you pay for. But even now for Photoshop tricks, like I'll just like type in like how to do this in Photoshop on YouTube, and I'll always find it. It's crazy.
And if you want to go deeper, I know there's Skillshare and other sites. You do pay for those. Those you do pay for, but it's considerably cheaper than it used to be for when you're taking like a class. Skillshare is like a class, whereas YouTube, right? There's so many. Just here's a 10-minute video that shows you me meticulously walking through this one element that you're curious about.
Yeah, and a few years ago, my partner and I, Rob Miller, who's he's also an artist, and he does some of the coloring on our books. We ran an online digital drawing thing called artsamurai.net. There's actually a Facebook page called Art Samurai. And we tried that for a couple of years, where we would just have weekly online meetups and classes where I'll give an assignment, and we'll have people show up. And it was cheaper than what the competition at the time offered, but we had a very personalized way of interacting and critiquing everyone's piece stuff. And hadn't done it for a few years, just no reason, just same thing, time. Just haven't had time to focus on it. I've got more priorities at the moment. We may go back to that, maybe not, we'll see. But right now it's still we'll share occasional tips on the Art Samurai page on Facebook, but that's art related news or something like that. But I mean, it can be taught. People can get better at it.
Yep. Joseph Hensley says, I'm a student. And he laughs about that.
Yeah. He's a student. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll say the biggest piece of wisdom I can give anybody is the best mindset is to think you're always a student. You're always a student. And
once you think that you're, hot poop and you have nothing else to learn, then you stop growing as an artist. And not just an artist, but anything creative, writing, acting, musician, anything creative. You're always learning.
Yes. So don't laugh about being a student. That's where you should be always, and grow. Yeah. Just keep growing. Yeah. So, well, it has been well over an hour, which is a great program. I'm glad to have you on finally.
Already? That time flies.
I know it.
I hope we have time in the future to do another one again, where you can talk about some of your projects you're doing.
Yeah,
maybe,
absolutely.
maybe something. Maybe we'll come across each other at Comic-Con and we can do a live little bit.
Do a live one from a show. Yeah.
Yeah,
that'd be kind of fun to do.
and if
while
Brian
we
was
eat or
there,
something.
yeah,
we got to get
Let
Brian.
me know. Let me know. I'll go wherever. Just let me know.
Well, we'll get that going.
Hopefully, by the time that happens, gas will be cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's a whole nother show.
Right.
Yes.
After hour show.
We talk about happy things here, people. Okay,
that's right.
Yeah, let's not bring the mood down. Well, at least we're at the end of the show instead of doing it at the beginning.
The last thing I did want to say is I was really impressed with the landscape, the cityscape, really that's behind Brian there. I'd seen some of your photography, your people photography, but I honestly hadn't seen your that kind of photography. Is this another avenue you've done, or just something you once in a while you find?
It's like I kind of compare it to just being an artist. My career as an artist, I kind of dabble in different things. With photography, you like to take a stab at different things, not just people or models or whatever, but landscapes, cityscapes. Why not? I've got a camera. I might as well try to shoot different things. And that's when I was in Vietnam a few years ago, and my relatives kind of live. We got a really nice view of the cityscape downtown Saigon right there. So I just made it a point one night to just show up there with a tripod and with my nice professional camera and just try to do a nighttime shot of it. And I'm glad at least Brian likes it.
I do like cityscapes. I do.
Yeah, cityscapes are cool. They're fun. To me, they're better than I like them a lot more than just landscapes of the country or something.
Yeah.
The way I kind of mess with the cityscapes in Photoshop, I try to give it a little more of a techie sci-fi type vibe to it, with the colors and the vibrancy and everything. And I enjoy doing it when the opportunity arises. Been trying to do one of Knoxville. Haven't been able to get a good angle or the time of day or anything. So one of as many times as I've been to Tennessee, the timing, just the stars never quite aligned for me to get a good shot of Knoxville.
Well, it's buried in the hills there, so sometimes your nice panoramic shots aren't as great.
The Smoky Mountains. I probably would rather try to get, speaking of taking something that's other than the city, now I'm going backwards. I'm backpedaling. I would like to get a really nice Smoky Mountain shot.
What you need there is to go to Ober-Gatlinburg.
Yeah, absolutely. In the morning.
That's the place.
Morning where you get the mist and the fog.
When the mountains are smoking. I'm going to be in Gatlinburg at the end. I believe Gatlinburg is going to be the end of July, and so I'm going to enjoy that because I love those mountains. So
yeah,
I'm outside of Detroit. The people are nice. The food's interesting. There's no landscape. It's just more buildings and more buildings. So
yeah. I've never, like I said, I've never been able to explore Detroit other than its airport.
Well, if you're ever here, especially for Motor City Comic-Con, again, I'm here and I am learning all the great fun spots. So I'll be glad to show you those too. And there's, the Fox Theater alone. I think you would enjoy the Fox Theater just to see the inside of that place is beautiful.
Does Motor City Comic-Con, do they still have Playboy Playmates? I remember back in the 90s, it seemed like they always had Playboy Playmates as a media guest. Do they still do that?
Not since I've been there. That's not their thing there. At least not the years I've been here. But they're more of the
just changed their business model or changed owners or something. I don't know.
I'm not sure, but mostly it's the television, movie celebrities and artists and comic book people and authors and stuff like that. So but check into it. It's a great con. It really is. It's really, really fun.
Hey, Motor City, if you want to fly me out for a cheap vacation.
I could pass your name along to a few people. So
sure, we'll hang out if it happens.
So, anyways, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you, everybody, for watching tonight.
Thanks, guys, for having me. It's nice to chat with you.
Oh, yeah. And I hope to have you on again in the future when you have time, which seems to be a toss of a coin.
Yes.
Yeah. I know the feeling.
We'll make it happen.
Yeah, we'll make it happen. So, and again, anybody else who, if you're watching this, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Leave a comment or question. If you have a question that you want to pass along to him, I will pass along if you ask it on here. Let him maybe give you an answer to it. So, anyways, thank you, Tom, for being here tonight. Brian, any words?
No, not that I can think of, except thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
Finally.
thanks for having me. I'll have to hit you up for a discount at Staples when I'm in your neck of the woods.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
You can go there and find gold or
I need
paper.
I need some printer and toner. Printer, ink,
Okay.
and toner.
Sure, have him give me a call. Absolutely, I'll hook you up.
Nice.
Yeah, no, just please come back.
Yes,
Definitely.
absolutely. Thank you for having me again. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know who the guest is next week. We're working on that. Brian probably won't be able to be here next week, so it'll be just the Dan hour. So, but do come on back by and watch. I will hopefully have someone as interesting and entertaining as Tom Nguyen, but we'll try.
I'm sure you'll have no problem.
So, everybody, y'all have a good night, and I hope to see you in the future.
All right. See you guys. Have a great night.
Bye.